Wrapping up this week, we're going to look at chapter 7.3, which is more multiplication properties. Next week, I believe we get into some division properties. But for right now, the things that we should be knowing is anything to a zero power is 1. That was the first lesson. That a negative exponent moves the base to another side. I keep asking students that whenever they get stuck. But that's all you have to remember. Actually, if you have to, again, go back to your notes. But a negative exponent wants to move. So if it's negative on the top of the fraction, move it to the bottom. If it's negative on the bottom, you move it to the top. What we learned yesterday in our chapter 7.2 was that whenever you multiply numbers with the same base, that you add the exponent. So we learned that if you had anything, you just pretty much put this addition up there. Now what we're looking at is whenever you have a power, x squared, going to a power of 3. And if we were to do that, remember that this 3 expanded means that there are 3 x squareds. Then remember that x squared means 2x's here, 2x's there, 2x's there, which of course makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x's all together. Typically there is a pattern to this, and of course you see in this that 2 times 3 is 6. And so what you need to know about this is that if you want to take a power to a power, that you multiply the exponent. So just like yesterday when I asked you to write the addition part of what was going on, today I need you to write the multiplication part that's going on. I do not need you to write the addition anymore because that was yesterday's material, and you obviously have either mastered it or at least done enough to kind of be on the right track. Now if you still want to write the addition, that is good, but you at least need to do the multiplication because that is the topic of the day. Other than that, looking at this stuff and what we're going to do, as long as it's a basic problem, kind of like this question here where it's n to the 4th going to the 7th, I am just going to understand, and the way I think about it is this: whenever I see a number, let's say 3, outside of parentheses with a 2, I automatically know that means multiply. So what I know this as is when 7 and 4 are directly separated by parentheses, that you're supposed to multiply. So I'm going to put n to the 4 parentheses 7, or 4 times 7 first. That's the first thing I need to write if I want credit today, which is n to the 28th. That's all you have to do. Again, this is the step that some of you keep skipping, but this is a step that's going to cost some of you a lot of points if you don't at least put that on there. Again, I don't need the addition anymore because you did that yesterday. I need this because this is the topic of the day, which is the multiplication part. Looking at B, you have x to the 2/3 going to the 1/2. Again, you have 2 exponents separated by parentheses, which means multiply to me, so it's 2/3 times 1/2. And what we learned is that whenever we multiply fractions, we go top to top, bottom to bottom, which is x to the 2 times 1 is 2 over 3 times 2 is 6. And of course 2 over 6 reduces to be x to the 1/3. So again, the multiplication of fractions should not be an issue. Just like yesterday, the addition of fractions should not have been an issue. If you don't know either way, just use your calculator, multiply them out, and get the answer. The problem with using your calculator too much on fractions is whenever you take the SAT on the no calculator portion, you're not going to be as strong skill-wise as you should be. So I'd say work that out without a calculator as much as possible unless the numbers are just getting out of hand. Problem 2 is where we're going to start putting some of this stuff together. It's asking for the simplified form of y to the 3rd times y to the 5/2 to the -2nd. This has power to a power, which is a power property that we just learned today. It also has a negative exponent, which is what we learned Monday. It also has 2 numbers being multiplied with the same base, which is what we learned yesterday. And what you have to do is remember to get rid of the floating exponent first. What I mean by that is 3 is attached to y, 5/2 is attached to y. This -2 is attached to a parenthesis, so we want to get rid of this first. So what we will do is rewrite my y to the 3rd, open my parentheses, and do y to the 5/2 times -2. Now why do I do all the work that I do with explaining how to do fractions? Because this is where it's handy. I multiply the whole number to the top. And so -2 times 5 is what I'm supposed to do, so it's y to the 3rd, y to the -10 over 2. If you remember, -2 times 5, leave the bottom number alone. Again, we've worked with this before. After that, you simplify this -10 over 2, which becomes y to the 3rd times y to the -5th. At this point, I'm going to show the work just like I'm supposed to, but you, if you are good enough, can skip showing the addition part, but I do need to see where the next step comes from, not just the answer. So you'll end up with y to the, because these are both, notice these are not directly separated by parentheses. This is y to the -5th, y to the 3rd. this is where you add 3 plus negative 5, which ends up as y to the negative second. And again, the last thing you had to learn is that the negative exponent means that y actually wants to be on the bottom with a positive 2. All those rules are important. That is why I've been asking you to show your work, because if you have not really learned the rules, you're not going to know what to do. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that if you get a question like this week, I don't expect for you to go from here all the way down to here. I need to be able to follow your logic. You might be able to get from here to here because you might have done that in the calculator by doing 5 halves. Remember, it goes into the parentheses times negative 2 and got a negative 5. That's fine if you skip from here to here, but I still need to see from here to here, from here to here at least, and then from there to there on Friday. So again, you may not show all the steps, although I think it's safe to make sure you do it. But however you develop by Friday, just make sure that you show your work today on the multiplication at least, so that I can give you your credit for the day of at least mastering the information for the day. Again, it's not a tough problem. Get rid of the floating exponent first by multiplying. After that, you do whatever else you have to do. Alright. Next question says, find the area of a square with the side of 5x to the third. Well, the first thing about a square is that all the sides are the same. And if one side is 5x to the third, then this would also be 5x to the third. And I also remember that area is length times width. And so what I would do here, if I have that situation, is substitute my length as 5x to the third and multiply by that another 5x to the third, which actually isn't a square, a power thing. But in terms of answering this question, if you see it, use your common sense. Of course, this isn't going to be a numeric answer because of this x, unless they give me a value for x. So what I have to do is just simply use what they give me, which is 5x to the third for this side, 5x to the third for this side. Area means multiply the two dimensions. And now let's work this out. 5 times 5, as we learned yesterday, turns into 25. And x to the third turns into x to the sixth. That's all I need to see. Show me work though. Do not try to be fancy this week. Otherwise you're running the risk of taking too many steps. At least show me some logic. Show me something kind of like a paper trail that shows where you got your final answer from, so that whenever I read your work, I can say, yes, they did that step, yep, they did one step, yep, they did one step. So do one step at a time. That's fine. Notice again, I wrote the formula, I substituted, I showed 5 times 5 is 25. That makes x to the sixth. I just didn't take this and put 25x to the sixth. So show me some logic, show me some work. You have to get used to that as you get close to geometry anyway, and so we might as well go ahead and knock that out. Problem number 4 is another tough one. It's got what is the simplified form of n to the 1/2 going to the 10th times 4mn to the negative 2/3 going to the third. Again, in your strategy, first deal with the exponents that have no homes. So first we want to deal with this. So we have n to the 1/2 times 10 getting multiplied by, well, here's the problem. This 3 is actually going to 1, 2, 3 different things. It's kind of like a distributive property whenever there's more than one thing. And here's what you have to understand. Whenever 4 doesn't have an exponent already, this just becomes the exponent. So it's just 4 to the third. Notice also that m does not have an exponent attached. It is not attached to the negative 2/3. Negative 2/3 is only attached to n. But m does not have an exponent, so that just becomes the exponent for m. And then n is the one where negative 2/3 gets multiplied by 3. So with all that, now you multiply. Again, you are good enough probably to know that 1/2 times 10 is a number, but I'm going to go ahead and work it out the real way because you never know when you might need it. Whole number goes to the top. This is n to the 10 over 2. Don't touch this yet because there's no need to rush. Don't touch that yet because there's no need to rush. This becomes 3 goes to the top, n to the negative 6 over 3. Simplifying everything now, n to the 10 over 2 becomes n to the 5th. 4 to the third I can do right here. You don't ever want to have a number go into a power. 4 to the third goes to 64. M to the third stays m to the third, and this becomes n to the negative second. And the last thing you do is you put number first and then alphabetize your variables. So 64 is the only real number I have there, which means that's what comes down. M is the first letter in order. It has nothing else to combine with, kind of like combining like terms. It comes on down. And then n is last, And again, you can write 5 plus negative 2 however you want to do that on Friday, but I think we know now that we take 5 plus negative 2, and we know that 5 plus negative 2 is 3. Again, I want you to notice that if I want credit on Friday, I am showing step by step, maybe not every step, maybe going from here to here to here down, but at least showing something that says, hey, Mr. Bradley, this is where I got my final answer from. Again, what some of you are going to do is just give me the answer or write some nonsense and some scribbles and then write it down. Organize your thoughts, work on that now, because if your work is not organized and if it looks too random, then I'm probably going to take points off for you being messy on this. This is kind of like the order of operations. If you remember the order of operations when I had 5 plus 2 times 5 plus 4, I didn't just let you write the answer. You had to actually show me 2 times 5 becomes 5 plus 10 plus 4, etc. You had to show me steps. Same thing on this week, same thing in this unit. If it's a major problem like this, I need to see steps. Don't just do it in your head. Don't just try to skip through a bunch of stuff and get it done, because that's going to mess you up in terms of points. Now, you'll probably get some points, but you'll only get half your points, and then you have to deal with the fact that you'll lose some points or lose some percentage that you probably shouldn't be losing. Problem number 5 is a word problem. It talks about the expression 1/2 mv squared. Gives the kinetic energy in joules of an object with a mass m traveling at a speed of v meters per second. So there's your mass, there's your velocity, I think. Yes. What is the kinetic energy of an experimental unmanned jet with this mass and this speed? Well, this is the mass and this is the speed or the velocity, and so all we're going to do is take this equation. Remember, anytime they give you a word problem with a formula or equation in there, use that equation, 1/2 mv squared. Now we just have to make sure we know what is what. Again, this is the mass, so we do 1/2 times 1.3 times 10 to the third times the velocity, or v, which is 3.1 times 10 to the third squared. I told you before, get rid of the floating exponent first, so you rewrite your 1/2, rewrite your 1.3 times 10 to the third, because there's really nothing we can do with that yet. Let's take care of this. Again, notice there's a number and another base over here for scientific notation. So kind of like your distributive property, this is going to be 3.1 squared times 10 to the, well, this is going to be 10 to the 6th, because remember, you multiply whenever it's 3 times that 2. Now you might be thinking, well, why didn't you write the multiplication? Because this is not a straightforward, easy question, so you need to do, whenever it's got all these number of steps, I don't expect for you to show me all the individuals. But again, let me stop this for a second. If I give you t to the third going to the 8th, I don't expect for you to just write t to the 24th. Show me where that came from if you see that. Again, show me something. But here, it's easy enough to understand. It's this squared times 10 to the 6th, close your parentheses. Now we've got a simplified 3.1 squared, which is 9.61. So we have 1/2 times 1.3 times 10 to the third times 9.61 times 10 to the 6th. At this point, with multiplication, you've got 1/2 times this amount times that amount. I would probably rather get the order of scientific notation out of the way first. And if you remember doing scientific notation yesterday, you simply take number times number. So 1.3 times 9.61, which is 12.493, times 10 to the, well, again, if you remember, this is 10 to the third, this is 10 to the 6th. Add those up, getting 10 to the 9th. And the last thing we do, 1/2 does not distribute to everything. 1/2 only distributes to the number. If you keep in mind, this is really not a number, this is 10 to the 9th, so that doesn't get touched. 1/2 only touches the actual number value. So you're going to do 1/2 times 12.493, which gives me 6.24265. Again, times 10 to the 9th. Now I need to put this officially on the video here because there are some people who did not get it yesterday. This works because it's 6 point something, and scientific notation works only whenever you have one digit and then a decimal. real fast, again, this is your final answer here, but a real quick note. If you ever have a number like 12.3 times 10 to the 8th, this is not scientific notation because you've got 2 digits before the decimal, and so you have to move this after the first digit. And what you have to do with that is recognize that if 12.3 turned into 1.23, if that got smaller, and to offset making this smaller, kind of like a seesaw, this side goes down, so this side must go up. And so you have to turn that to 10 to the 9th because you moved that one spot over. If you would have had to move it 2 spots over, this would have went up by 2. The other idea is, what if I got 0.612 times 10 to the 8th? Again, forget about this. This has nothing to do with that question. This is just something to kind of expand on your scientific notation. Scientific notation also does not start with zeros, and so I need to move this behind the 6. Well, notice from 0.612 to 6.12, this just got bigger. So again, kind of like a seesaw, if this got bigger, then this one has to get smaller, has to become 10 to the 7th. So whenever you get answers like 0 point something in scientific notation, or 2 or more digits in front of the decimal in scientific notation, you have to adjust it to where you have 1 digit in front. Other than that, go ahead and go to your Math XL, begin working, get as much as you can done, and again, make sure you're working to get this stuff knocked out. Now, you might not finish because it is a shortened day, but keep in mind you have all weekend to get this, plus you can come in at lunch. Just make sure you let me know if you need to come in at lunch, or you can come in before or after school to get this stuff done. It's just a homework assignment, not a quiz. So as long as you get that knocked out, it will go on as 100% instead of whatever other grade you might have. So good luck today.